Welcome to the Intentionists podcast, where we explore the interplay between intuition, spiritual health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Aimee Schreiber.
And I'm Hillary Zwallen. Our intention is to create a dialogue that inspires you to consciously forge your path with curiosity and compassion for life and its mysteries. Welcome, Intentionists. Thanks for joining us today. Aimee welcomes former corporate lawyer, inspirational speaker, and thought leader, Lara Rathod, to discuss navigating uncertainty, cultivating openness, and following your curiosity beyond your comfort zone. They talk about the pressure around finding your passion and trusting the exploratory process. They explore the balance between logic and spirituality and following the breadcrumbs toward wonder. Lara also shares a transformational strategy that has reframed her internal dialogue and the power of building momentum in the face of fear with tiny shifts in attitudes and behaviors, as well as magical stories of synchronicity. Lara is a self-described life explorer and seeker of new ideas and experiences who, over the last 6 years, has been following her curiosity to rediscover the creativity she embodied as a child. As a speaker, Lara has spoken regularly at Speaker Express, winning the audience award at their speaking competition in December 2015. She's also spoken at Inspired, Just Add Water's Story Social, and the Unconventional Convention. You can find some of her talks on YouTube. Having worked as a corporate lawyer in London for over 16 years, she left her role as head of legal at an investment management firm early 2018. In the next chapter of her career, Lara wants to use her speaking, facilitating, and presenting skills to educate and inspire audiences and help them navigate life's ups and downs by using tools she has gained from her own personal journey. Lara's natural curiosity for people and her love of exchanging ideas was shaped by her international upbringing growing up as a third culture kid in Bahrain and Istanbul. She will shortly be launching her interview series, The Red Sofa Conversations, on YouTube. And if you'd like to get a message to Lara, you can contact her via our email at intentionists@gmail.com.
Lara, thank you so much for joining with me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's just dive right in and talk a little bit about your background, kind of how you grew up and the beliefs that you held about things like career fulfillment or passion, and kind of how they shifted over the course of your career and adult life. So a bit of background about you.
Okay, so I was born in the UK, and then when I was 3, we moved to Bahrain because of my dad's job. So I spent about 13 years abroad, and 12 of those years were in Bahrain, and 1 was in Istanbul. So I was an only child, and I think that has helped shape a lot of who I am because I didn't have siblings at home. I was very very curious about people, and I had a real love of chatting to people and connecting with people. And so I would kind of make conversation with anyone, with my neighbors, with people I sat next to on planes, and I loved making friends. Another aspect of being an only child is that my parents sort of fostered a real sense of creativity in me. So they took me to the library very early. And so that was my first love, reading. And every week we'd go to the library and one book had to be about dogs. And I think what that did is that gave me a window into losing myself in imaginary worlds. So as a young child, I was, highly creative in all spheres. I loved reading that translated into writing, poetry, and short stories and limericks. And then I was also musical, probably inspired a little bit by the 80s TV series Fame. And I think that looking back, I saw all of these things as just wonderful things to do for fun. Because I was that creativity coupled with the fact that, I was a pretty bright child, and so academics came relatively easily. I think that somewhere along the way, I just kind of figured that I would do a grown-up career. When I was very young, I wanted to be a doctor, but then shelved that because I didn't like the sight of blood. So I don't think I consciously was aware of my career or choosing a career until I was probably early teens. And trying to think about what to study for A-levels, which is the 2 years in England when you're 17 and 18. And the reason that I picked law was partly shaped, and a word to note for other people: don't pick careers based on TV shows. But it's partly shaped by LA law, and seeing people argue passionately. LA law and paper chase, actually. And so it was both the intellectual side of law and the debate and the analysis, which was in paper chase, and then with LA law it was basically speaking and arguing a position and convincing. And I really loved the intellectual challenge. And so it seemed like a career that would provide me with variety, intellectual challenge, financial security, and the ability to work with people. So the funny thing is that because my perceptions of what being a lawyer were based on LA law, I thought I'd go into litigation. So it never in my mind occurred to me that I would end up being a corporate lawyer. And that's where you see my intuition and my gut sort of takes over, because when I started my training contract at a law firm, it was corporate that I enjoyed the most. I loved being part of a transaction and working with clients and being the point person that liaised with the clients and sort of the central person that kind of pulled things together, the other specialist areas of law into a deal, and project managing the whole thing. And that's why I ended up qualifying into corporate. So I suppose, to answer your question, while I wasn't conscious at the time, I think I sort of looked at my creativity and all of the things that I enjoyed, and I thought that they were sort of hobbies. I didn't realize actually how intrinsic they are in my life and in sort of making me, who I am. And I suppose the journey that I've been going on in the last 6 years is finding my way back to that and rediscovering my creativity in different forms.
So with law, though, listening to you speak about growing up and how you love to meet new people, it sounds like as a corporate lawyer, you were the connector. Like that was the piece of it that really, captured you. Is that accurate?
Yeah. One thing I realized lately when I attended Liz Gilbert's Big Magic workshop is she wanted us to write letters to ourselves. So the Big Magic workshop is based on her book Big Magic, which is all about creative living through fear. And in the workshop, she wanted us to write letters. So letters from fear, letters sort of to enchantment, etc. And with enchantment, it's finding your joy. And one of the things that I've written in finding my joy, as well as speaking and connecting, is witnessing other people's existence. And I think that because I was always fascinated by people as a child, and I had this need to forge connections, and connection is one of my highest values. And so that's translated to this day, because I have a lot of different friends and I'm very good at maintaining those friendships. And through those friendships, I get to see the world in different ways and through different points of view, with friends that some of whom are very similar to me and some of whom are very different. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing where you can forge a bond but still appreciate each other's differences.
I love that you bring up the differences and how that's like the amazing thing about interacting with other human beings, because I think one of the big parts about being a connector is being able to be curious about people. So how has your curiosity shaped your choices and informed these types of relationships that you formed over the years? And what have you learned by kind of taking leaps based in curiosity?
That's a really great question, actually, because I only became aware, I think 2 years ago, that instead of following my passion, I had been following my curiosity. So to put it in context, I had been on a career break about 5 years ago, and I was very open. I think I was just looking for things that sparked my interest or made me happy. And, in following synchronicity, one thing sort of leads to another. So, I'd done a hugely impactful personal impact course when I was at my job sort of 3 jobs ago. And in that sort of made me see how certain courses can really, change you and expose you to different things. And so because of that, I was looking, I was having conversations with people and telling them about that. And somebody recommended the More to Life weekend. And through that, and through being open and being willing to try new things, that inspired my friends. So they were also searching for things and sending me things to try. And through that, I discovered, Matthew Hussey and his work. And I think he's a hugely impactful thought leader. And he has a real grasp of human dynamics and what makes people tick. And through a friend that I met there, I discovered my speakers club, which was called Pony Express. It's now called Speaker Express. And I had no idea that I wanted that speaking would become such a huge part of my life, because I'd never thought about it. I'd done speech and drama, I'd done acting at school, but I'd done debating, and obviously with law, you kind of were speaking and conveying arguments all the time, but there's a difference with public speaking, and I hadn't appreciated what was missing from my life. I suppose it's a bit like falling in love. People can describe it to you, but until you actually experience it, you never really know. And so the first time that I spoke on stage, my whole body had goosebumps. My heart was sort of pounding, and not in a nervous way, but in an excited way. And I actually felt like, oh my goodness, this is something that I absolutely love. It's something that I feel comes from me quite naturally, and it's something I'm excited to learn and be good at, and also to share things and have an impact on people, because I had people coming up to me and saying, oh, what you said really inspired me, or I felt exactly the same as you. And that was the first time in my entire life, so I think I was about 38 at the time, it was the first time in my entire life that I had actually experienced, and I suppose now I know that it's called flow. That sort of Zen state where you actually feel like everything is right in what you're doing. And that then was a springboard for me to rediscover, writing again. I blogged for Escape the City a little bit, and I wrote for pleasure. And following my curiosity, now I look back and I see that that's exactly what I was doing. And that started off in sort of late 2012, early 2013. And that's something that I've been very now consciously doing in my life, especially now that I have made the decision to try and move towards a new chapter of my life. So that's something that 2018 has been very much, has been following my curiosity as well. So I think that essentially when you follow your curiosity, it does two things. Firstly, it takes the pressure off following your passion. Because it's quite ironic. I think of myself as an incredibly passionate person, being a Scorpio, and also, feeling strongly about things. I really love theatre. I love songs. I can lose myself in music and books and everything. But this whole following your passion concept has literally brought me angst and confusion, because it's such huge pressure. Because I think that unless you have a clear passion or a clear vocation, so if you're an incredible artist or you are exceptional at, composing and playing music, or something that really stands out, that it's so undeniable, I think for those people it's quite clear. Or if they have something inside them that they know that they've always wanted to do and they're very clear, that's brilliant. When you follow your passion, that's fantastic. But for other people who they might have more than one passion, or they might be really confused as to, is this really a passion that I want to do for fun, or is this a passion that I actually want to do and see whether I can make a living out of it? Because they are two different things. And sometimes when you do that, you put pressure almost on your passion, and it can cease to be something that you enjoy. And so I was left, 5 years ago, and I was thinking about, well, what's my passion? What's my passion? And looking around all these passionate people and just feeling completely inadequate. I think somewhere in me, I just decided that, okay, that's not working for me anymore. And because I'm quite instinctive, I ended up thinking, well, you know what? I'm just going to do things that make me happy. And I'm going to put myself in situations and have experiences. And through those experiences, hopefully they will help me figure things out about myself. And that's exactly what happened, because through that I discovered, wow, I love learning about people. So when I would hear Matthew Hussey talk, and I'd read things that he or his brother Stephen had written, it would make sense to me. So I liked deconstructing the human condition, and I loved speaking, because it was a dynamic and it was interactive. And there's a difference when you're speaking to people versus, writing a blog that people read. Speaking is a reciprocal experience, and there's real beauty in it. And it's not just what you give the audience, it's what they give you. And when you have people, looking at you and smiling and nodding, it sort of feeds. It's a beautiful symbiotic relationship. And so by following your curiosity, it sort of made me actually be willing to now push myself out of my comfort zone and try things just for the hell of it, all the while knowing that actually it's not the result that's important, and it's not whether I'm any good at it that's important. What's more important is the flexing of the muscle to try and be willing to put myself in quotes, discomfort.
Wow. That's beautiful. You just covered so many really important things. The first thing I want to highlight about what you just said is I can totally relate to the anxiety around finding your passion. And I think that's something that so many people struggle with. And the first time that I heard someone kind of help this concept for me was Marie Forleo. I don't know if you know who she is.
Yeah, I've watched a few of her interviews. I really love the one with Simon Sinek, actually.
Yeah, she has some great videos, but she talks about being a multi-passionate entrepreneur. And so her whole thing is about how, like, it's okay to have many passions and many ideas about what you want to do. And because I think the concept is just wonderful relief for people who struggle to narrow and feel like to pick one thing is to exclude all these other really exciting parts of ourselves. So yeah, like you said, I think that's amazing advice, exactly what you did, which was following your joy and curiosity in the moment instead of focusing on this pressure of what is the passion, the ultimate passion that excludes everything else. I think that's the anxiety way to look at it, and what you did was a beautiful example of getting out of that mindset.
I think also, Aimee, it's, you can kind of feel like you're sort of failing at life. I think we all have very high standards for ourselves. We're all our biggest critics. And, when you look at other people from the outside, you kind of look and see things that they're doing. And I think that you sort of you can feel, and I certainly have experienced this, where I'm thinking, oh, why do I not have that thing that, makes me know and makes me go for it? And when you could pursue a lot of different things, I think that certainly for me, I've kind of looked at it, and I've been in analysis paralysis where it's like, well, which one should I do? And, you get so, I got so caught up in just, well, I don't know. And then that leaves me in a state of not doing anything. And when I went on Matthew Hussey's retreat at the end of 2013, he highlighted very clearly that it doesn't matter what you do, you just need to pick something and do it. He said that, the wrong action even is better than inaction. And actually, when you take that a little step further, when you're actually in it and you take an action, no action is really wrong. And I think that's another thing I've learned. Because, nothing that you do is ever really wrong. There are very few actions that you can take that have disastrous consequences. Everything is recoverable from. You just course correct. And what you do when you take an action is you're going to learn something. You're either going to get what you set out to out of it, or you're going to get something different. And what that something different is knowledge about yourself and knowledge about the action that you've taken to then help you take the next action. So I think that if we can try and separate this whole idea of getting it wrong and the stakes are really high when we do something, if we can sort of take that away and just go, well, you know what? I'm just trying it. It's okay. I'm trying something and I'm going to see whether I like it or not. That just then brings it into a whole different sphere, and it's much, you can feel much lighter and much more willing to give things a go.
Yeah, I think this is going to sound kind of strange, but I've experienced many times that paralysis of indecision because I was so terrified of getting the choice wrong that I remember even entering that mindset when I was trying to decide if I was going to get a divorce. And I ended up telling myself, like, I have to, I'm just going to try it. I'm just going to try to get divorced. And it
Yeah.
sounds silly, but to understand that like whatever you choose to do is going to be a learning experience and going to be better than that state of limbo and indecision. Like that's a horrible, horrible place to be.
Yeah, I mean, being in a state where the stakes, I mean, obviously getting a divorce is a huge thing. Choosing to leave a job is a huge thing. You know, there are certain things where it's not just, oh, I'm going to go and buy a red bike or whatever, right? You know, and so on a spectrum, like this is one thing that I believe, and I've heard this a long time ago, and Liz Gilbert actually said this at her workshop. So when you're in doubt, do nothing until you're compelled to move. So that's apparently a Sufi principle. And
Wow.
I've actually unconsciously followed that for quite a lot of years, which is basically that if I really, really, really don't know what to do, I keep the status quo until I feel it. And I think that that's what drives change for people. You know, when you start making a big decision or you start taking action on a big thing. So for me, for example, it was quitting my job and making the decision that I was going to resign towards the end of last year. And what happened is that the pain of staying the same ended up being greater than the pain that I knew I'd have to go through in making the change. And so, yes, that's the catalyst. And I think that if you start cultivating that trust in yourself and in your body, because I really believe, you know, that we all feel things very strongly in our bodies. And it's like, you know, you feel fear, you kind of, you know, your sort of the hairs on your neck, you know, stand up. Or when you're feeling joy and excitement, your heart feels light. Or if you're talking to somebody who is making you feel small, you know, your chest can tighten. And I think that it's cultivating the awareness of how things feel in your body. And if you just take a polarized view of when you feel really good and when you feel really awful, you know, those are very clear barometers. Then everything else in between you can start to navigate by testing things out. And so for me, and I would imagine it might be the same for you, but, you know, we'll find that out. But for me, I kind of, even though I'd had feelings before of, you know, I just don't feel this is right for me anymore, I kind of got to the point of, sounds a bit dramatic, but I felt like my soul was dying. I was very aware of this time in my life, this very unique time in my life, where I really felt like I'd seen enough of the other side. You know, I'd tried out speaking, I'd tried out different things, and I very much wanted to have those be part of my next chapter. And I felt that if I carried on, I could have done, because, you know, I had the financial security, I had the, you know, intellectual challenge, I had the variety of the work. I loved, you know, I've been very fortunate. I've worked with great people and who are still friends to this day at, you know, all the different companies. So, you know, there was a lot of good, but deep inside, I just felt like I want to do something else, and I don't feel that I'm fulfilling my natural potential. And so that was the driver. It was like the pain, you know, the pain of staying in that career, it had got too much for me, and I really felt the desire to try something else. So that's, I think, a key sort of impetus for change.
Yeah, you absolutely just explained that beautifully. So you reached that little tipping point where you had a certain amount of conviction that, yes, to stay is worse than to change. But you were still very uncertain about what the future held for you. Like there was so much uncertainty, but you had like the sliver of conviction that, yes, you should do this, but you don't know what it's going to look like. So my question is, what other kinds of little strategies do you have and do you use when you are in the face of this uncertainty or you're in a point of decision? Like, what other coping skills have you learned along those points?
So I think the first thing that I learned, and I learned a lot of life skills from my speakers club. So one of them was start before you're ready. That's something that I kind of cultivated along the way, from having to make speeches and do things where I didn't feel necessarily that I was, qualified enough to do them. But part of the program, the 12-month program as it was then, was doing different speeches. So I started with the things that I felt most comfortable on. So I did speaker modeling, and then I did an impromptu. So speaker modeling is where you step into the space of another character. So I did Ben Affleck's speech in Boiler Room, very different character to me. And then an impromptu is where you're given a topic and you have to speak for 90 seconds. And then I tried out emceeing, and then emceeing at both the members club and then emceeing at the club night. And so finally, when I'd done pretty much everything else apart from making my 6 minute, I then had to do, a 6-minute speech. And I didn't feel ready. I compared myself to everybody else, and who most of whom were business owners who had a very clear idea about what they were speaking about. And I wasn't a business owner. And so I didn't know what to talk about. And I ended up talking about, the speech was called The Power of Why. Essentially, when I made the speech, I didn't feel ready, and I did it anyway. And so being part of that speakers club showed me that it's really important to push yourself out of your comfort zone. So I suppose the skills that I've learned over the last 5 years have helped me to make the decision to quit my job without having a clear vision as to what the next steps would be. Because I knew that I had the ability to course correct at any time, so that's taken the pressure off. I knew that I was very open, and when I had been open in the past about opportunities that might come, I've always gotten huge rewards from them, whether it's, I stumble upon something that has a huge impact on me. And right now, the thing that's had the most impact on me is a speaking course that I'm doing right now with Mind Valley, which is Lisa Nichols' Speak and Inspire. And I signed up for this course about 2.5 weeks ago. And I thought, this is going to be great. It's going to help me improve speaking skills. And the beautiful thing about being open and curious is that you stumble upon things, I found, that actually give you so much more. So I think what this course has given me is it's actually given me it's helping me appreciate myself and see myself and actually love myself more than I ever have in my entire life, which I know sounds like a huge thing that, I can't believe it myself, but I think that's the key thing. It's that when you're making leaps because you actually trust in yourself. Now looking back, that's what I must have hung on to, because it was a very difficult decision. When the leap from, this is really, I don't think this is right for me anymore. Firstly, that's huge because, when you've been doing a career for almost sort of 20 years of your life, it's a big deal to kind of think, okay, well, do I want the next 20 years to be like this, or do I want to try something different? But then to get from that to actually, I'm going to resign, believe me, it took a lot of crying, a lot of soul searching, and a lot of feeling, to be honest. I really let myself feel through the emotions, and then I made the decision, and I think I don't think I would have been able to make that decision if I hadn't had some past experiences where I had learnt these lessons and started to build the kernels of trust within myself. And that's a journey. It's a journey I think that's probably the biggest journey we're on in life, to be honest, is try and figure out who we are and, how do we be of service in this world, and how do we contribute, and how do we do something which brings meaning to our lives, and who do we want to be? And that's the journey that I'm on, and I think a lot of people are on too. And part of that journey is to build trust in yourself.
That's beautiful. I think, that when we act in the face of our uncertainties, we don't know what exactly is going to happen or how. But when we make these little actions along the way, it's a signal to ourselves that we, like you said, trust in ourselves, trust in our ability to, either deal with whatever's coming or course correct, like trust in our own resourcefulness and adaptability. And I feel like in this podcast, almost every episode, we come to the question of balance between the analysis and the intuition. And I love how you said that both seem to be strong players in your life. Like you've had this whole career that is very logic based, very like needed lots of linear rational thinking, but also you're trying to forge a new and different path using your feelings, like getting really in touch with your emotions and your purpose and doing a lot of self-transformation courses. So do you have anything else to say about this balancing act? I know you gave an amazing speech about balance, and I don't know that it was exactly related to this form of balance, but can you share any more insights about that?
Yes. So one thing that is slightly odd as I've been reflecting this year, or in recent weeks actually, is that I strongly rely on my intuition for making pretty much every decision in my life. While I'm somebody who thinks through things and I will balance things, I never make a decision that my heart is not okay with. That's how I picked, being a corporate lawyer. That's how I've made decisions about, entering relationships, friendships, anything. It's I feel it in my gut. The interesting thing is that while I have that very strongly in my personal life, with my career or with my with what I'm going to end up doing in my life, I've found that hard because you see, when you pick a career, there are a lot of things that go into that, and one of them is financial security and the ability to support yourself. Especially, I'm single at the moment, so the buck stops with me, and that was always actually a driver in an early driver in when I picked it, because I wanted to be independent and I wanted to be financially secure. And now looking back, I see that, okay, that's part of the reason that I picked law. So this year, I have come across people who have given me advice about balancing the masculine and feminine energy, and in different spheres. So one person said to me that I am a head person, and immediately I was about to leap in and go, no, I'm a heart person. And she said, this doesn't mean that you don't rely on your heart, which, as I've explained, I do. She said, what it means is that you think things through and you kind of want to uncover the why, and you want to figure out, the answers. And that is totally true. When there's a problem or when there's a situation with a friend or a partner or whatever, I do want to understand why somebody did what they did, so I can understand them better and I can understand the reasons for things, that I can apply them in future situations. But what she had said to me was that I really recommend that you start getting more in touch with spirituality, because if you have that planning side and you couple that with the spirituality, that's going to get you, them working in conjunction with each other is going to get you forward. Somebody else told me, very much the same thing, that I need to start harnessing and becoming more in touch with my spiritual and my emotional, because that's where the desire and the projecting forward as to what I want to do is going to come from, because I have the elements of how to do it, because that's kind of what I've done in my career. But the driver and the what exactly I want to do, I need to become more in touch with it. And so I'm starting to sort of see that there's a lot more to this than I originally thought, and I'm starting to be open to different aspects of spirituality. So one of the things I did, I bought some crystal oracle cards, and I kind of shuffle them, and I draw one, each day, whatever falls out, and it's a nice little anchor of something that I can think about, and I went to see John Edwards, who's a medium. He had a TV series a while back in London, like 10 years ago, and it was a really beautiful experience. When I went to see John Edwards, I was very open, and I was amazed actually by when he was giving messages to certain people, how specific they were, and it made me believe. And I think that because I'm on a journey to cultivate this, I'm open. I'm obviously, I want to get to a point where I get some sort of clear direction for myself by trying things as to where I'm going to end up. But I don't know where I'm going to end up. And so by being open to mysticism and possibility, it's a really exciting and calming space for me to be in. And I think that part of my practice in this time, especially this time of uncertainty, is that when I start, because I frequently feel this, oh my goodness, it's been, X months and I haven't totally figured out, my next step. And I put myself under pressure. It's not even about, I'm very good now at being able to tune out what other people might think and feel, because, I'm very aware that this is my journey and it's my choice. And to be honest, this is the greatest gift I've ever given myself, is the ability to take the time and space to figure this out. But because I am goal-orientated and I'm results-orientated, I am getting frustrated. And I think that part of my practice, and it's not a conscious thing, but it's something that I just find myself doing, is that it's finding a way to silence the masculine energy, the one that sort of wants all the answers, that wants to have a clear plan, and start to believe that if I take one action, that action will then lead on to another action and will lead me to the place that I know I'm meant to end up in. I mean, and look at this, it's like, from doing the speaking course, did I ever think that I would discover the mirror work, which has had such a profound impact on my life and my ability to love myself? No. Did I think that I'd meet and connect with, incredibly beautiful people from all around the world, that would then spring up, beautiful opportunities? No, I had no idea. So I think it's sort of acting in the face of fear and uncertainty, acting anyway. Doing something is better than doing nothing. And so when you act and you're open, then you start seeing possibility. And I think it's that you then attract people who feel the same way that you feel, and through that, it's following breadcrumbs essentially. So that's the short answer is the way that I'm trying to balance them is by following the breadcrumbs and doing them in spite of my fear.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. Yes, there's so much here. A little bit of context for listeners who don't know. Me and Lara, we met in this speaking course that she's been mentioning. And so can you explain exactly what the mirror work is? Because that's something that I too have found really transformational. Just explain what are the steps?
Okay, so for people that don't know, mirror work is essentially where you look at yourself in the mirror, and the steps of this. And before I tell you the steps, I just want to say that in the past, when I have been vaguely exposed to mirror work, I've actually found it kind of bullshit. Because, the mirror work before that I was told to do was, you look in the mirror and you say, I love and accept you as you are. And it felt bullshit to me because I was like, well, I don't love and accept me as I am. I'm feeling frustration. But there is something about the mirror work that we've had to do on this Speak and Inspire course that I literally find life-changing. So what it is it's three things. You sit in front of the mirror, and look, when you're busy, I get everybody's busy. So don't think that you have to do it in this perfect way of just sitting in front of the mirror in your bedroom or whatever. You can do it when you're in the bathroom brushing your teeth. You can do it driving in your car. You can do it even on the tube looking in your camera phone. So you can make whatever it is work for you in your timetable. The important thing is that you actually do it, and you do it consistently, because the doing of it consistently is what is going to bring about the transformation, even though our experience, I think, from the people that have shared in the tribe, is even doing it the first time had a huge impact on all of us. So the mirror work is this. It's you say your name, and then you say 3 sentences. And each sentence you're going to say 7 times, so it'll have 7 different endings. So the first sentence, so I'll do it as if I'm doing it for me. So it's Lara, I'm proud of you for. And then you'll say it 7 times. 7 things that you're proud of yourself for. The next one is Lara, I forgive you for. And you say 7 things. And the third sentence is Lara, I commit to you that. And then you make 7 commitments. And one thing that Lisa Nichols wants us to do is to actually write down observations every time that we do the mirror exercise. Observations as to how we feel or what things can come out. And so she wants us to write 3 or 4 things. And so what I tend to do now is that I sort of write about my mood when I'm doing it, whether I'm emotional, what made me emotional, what the context of the day is, etc. And then I kind of jot down 2 or 3 things that I may have said, why I'm proud of myself, why I forgive myself, what I commit to myself. And it helps me kind of see where my head is at and what things are meaningful to me at the time, and what things, for me, the most profound experience has been the I forgive you. I don't know, how have you found that, Aimee, for you? Like, which sentence really resonated with you?
I think all of them, like they all address really important pieces of your mind. Like the original I'm proud of you for is the chance to celebrate like what you have been doing and what you're thankful for about yourself. So that's been huge. But yes, the I forgive you part has been really amazing because it addresses this perfectionism that I, and I think probably a lot of people grow up with, this sense that we can't make mistakes, and to acknowledge those mistakes, to see your imperfection is hard for a lot of people, but you have to see it in order to release it. And it's as simple as that. It's as simple as like, oh, I don't need to feel this shame over this thing anymore. I'm just, I'm human. So yeah, that too has been huge for me.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I did it, I had such resistance. I felt really tense in my body, and I kind of felt like, I was wearing this really itchy, woolly jumper. I just didn't want to do it. But I'd made this commitment that I was going to, follow the steps of this course. And so I sat in front of my mirror at 1 a.m. And, having been on this personal development journey for quite a few years now, I am actually quite good at appreciating certain things about myself. But when I came to the I forgive you, I mean, I bawled like a baby before I even started talking. And I cried for sort of 2-3 minutes, and not even, just like pretty little tears. It was the Oprah ugly cry where I just sobbed. And I know I sobbed because I took a video because I just wanted to see what came out. I was a bit curious about it. And when I watched it back, I mean, it was so painful. And what I found, the things that I was forgiving myself for were just, now I look at it and it just blows my mind, because I was forgiving myself for past illness. And I was forgiving myself for, not having my life figured out, and not being all svelte, And I kind of saw those things, and after I said them, I cried all the way through the I forgive you. I then kind of felt, my gosh, I've been carrying this baggage around unconsciously, even though I intellectually know that, past illness wasn't my fault, and it happens, everybody struggles and has different things that they're battling with, and that I know lots of people who don't know exactly what their path in life is, and they may be in jobs that they really don't feel are right for them, or they may be in life situations that they really don't feel are right for them. Nobody's got it down perfect, even the people that we look, because now we live in a social media age of picture perfect, the Facebook, Instagram versions with filters, where you kind of just look at someone else and you think, wow, they have it all together. But the reality is they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that the things that I was carrying, that I felt deep inside, that I felt shame and anger and just whatever unpleasant, unhelpful
Mm-hmm.
feelings. I didn't realize that that's what I was carrying. And so it felt quite liberating to, become aware of it, because I think awareness is the first step of making any change. And then to decide, this is not working for me. I'm going to leave this. And so now I find great beauty in, I can say I forgive you for other things. Some of them keep coming up, and some of them I kind of reframe, where I'm like, you know what? I forgive you for not having your life figured out right now, but you're trying. So I kind of, even in the I forgive you, I'm adding, something that just makes it a different ending.
Mm-hmm.
And, I forgive myself for small situational things, so something I may have done the day before. Sometimes I'm like, really, I feel like I'm gaming the system because I'm forgiving myself, or in case I feel like doing this tomorrow, I forgive you. But
preemptive forgiveness.
Preemptive forgiveness. But, it's liberating, because what it is it's actually training my mind to be kind to myself, because I have no problem being kind to everybody, all my friends. I'm exceptionally kind to them. But with myself, I'm quite good now. I catch myself when I do it, but I still do it. And it's like, I'll say really unkind, unhelpful things. And by doing this exercise, I think it's forging new neural pathways in my brain. So it's helping me to be kinder. And I mean, this is literally the thing that I've wanted most in my whole life, is to sort of start, this journey towards really loving and accepting who I am. Because I think when you do that, you then start seeing everything starts becoming a little different.
Right. Yeah, it's completely changing your inner dialogue, mine as well. And I like what you said about like each thing kind of piggybacks on the back of another thing. You start like, I'm thankful I did this. And then you can say, well, I forgive myself for spending the first 35 years of my life for not doing that, even though it's really helpful.
Yeah.
And then you make the commitment like, I commit to continue doing that tomorrow. Like, so it's like there's the gratitude, and then there's the forgiveness, and then there's the like insurance that you're not going to be making the same mistakes forever through this like commitment setting. It's been really, really amazing for me too.
Yeah.
Before we close out, you brought up following the breadcrumbs as part of this awakening, intuition, exploring your spirituality. I love that you said just like the openness, it's this journey and exploration that's brought you into contact with new ideas and strategies that have been helpful to you. So the breadcrumbs, let's talk more about synchronicity. Like, this is the exciting little signs along the way, the enchantment that's part of life.
Yeah.
Even I feel our conversation right now has come about in a very synchronistic way. So is there a favorite story of synchronicity from recent times that you could share?
God, there are so many. So let me pick something from this year. Well, as you said, I'll pick two. I'll touch upon what you just said. So one of the things that I really passionate about is having interesting conversations with people and exchanging ideas, and how when you exchange ideas, it's such a dynamic, beautiful dialogue, because, I think you get little sparks, little nuggets that then can make your mind go in a different way and expose you to different things and follow you on the next breadcrumb. And how this came about is that, as you said earlier, we're part of the same course, and there's 5,000 people on this course, but I very strongly feel that, you are meant to meet certain people and connect with certain people. And it's not about needing to connect with the other 5,000. It's about the people that you connect with are the ones that are right for you. And so when you and I started watching each other's videos, I remember feeling a very strong connection to you. And then we spoke and we had this lovely conversation where you then said, would you like to be on the podcast? And in my mind, I was like, oh, absolutely, that would be so exciting. And the funny thing is that you told me that you had felt that really strongly from seeing my videos. And I had felt, I think you had mentioned in one of your videos you had a podcast, and I had thought about it. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be lovely, like, to do it? But I don't think I'd even asked you about it. And so we both were thinking the same thing, probably at the same time. And then, the situation of our conversation made that a reality. And so I think that's synchronistic, because if I hadn't done this course, you and I would never have, have met and been able to create this. Going back 5 years ago, as I think I mentioned the sort of the Matthew Hussey story and how when I did the Get the Guy weekend with his company, which they don't do anymore, at the end of that weekend, I met somebody called Jo. And we chatted about the retreat because I wanted to talk to her about going on the retreat with him and what her experience, because she had just done it. And we became friends on Facebook. And she then was a member of what was then Pony Express, my speakers club. And I happened to see that day that it said Jo was going to a Pony Express event, and I liked the name. And so I said to her, oh, what's this all about? And she said, oh, you have to come down. It's really fun. And I'd never been researching speakers clubs or anything like that. And I went there and I literally felt like I'd found a tribe. It felt like an incredibly warm, welcoming environment. It was exciting. People were being brave. They were getting up on stage and speaking and getting feedback. And they were exchanging ideas. I was learning and growing. And so, literally, if one thing hadn't happened, I may not have ever discovered an environment which literally changed my life. It's made the last 4 years of my life different because, as well as being a corporate lawyer, I'm a speaker as well. And I just could have easily just totally not discovered that at all. So yeah,
that's so amazing.
Synchronicity is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is. It's the magic of life. It's like these little coincidences, they remind us and allow us to live in this space of wonder and curiosity and gratitude. And it's just like, it's so amazing. I mean, people describe it different ways and call it different things, but yeah, it's like little kisses from the universe.
Oh God, I love the way you describe that. Yes, it is. It is like little kisses, little blessings, little nuggets of joy from the universe that you're able to sort of be a part of. I mean, another thing, some people call synchronicity coincidence, but I think that coincidence takes away the magic, and I think there is something magical and divine about synchronicity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way in the religion that I grew up, it's described as a tender mercy. So like a divine act that is just this tender moment to let you know that, like, yes, you're on the path, you're loved, you're this, you're that. But Carl Jung is the one who I think originally came up with the term synchronicity in modern usage, the psychiatrist.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was reading up about it the other day. He had this really close relationship with a physicist, Pauling, I don't know. But anyways, they would write letters to each other because they were kind of obsessed with like the physical material world blending with the spiritual, unconscious, unseen realm. And they're saying that like synchronicity is this moment when the two come together and intersect. And this scholar that was talking about it, he said that synchronicity is this resource to re-enchant like the disenchanted modern world. It is the enchantment. It is what makes us believe and hope.
Which is why I think that the only thing, if I could leave anybody, if I could leave people with one thought, it would be cultivate your openness. Even if you're skeptical, just try and be 1% open. On the next day, 2% open. Matthew Hussey talks about millimeter shifts. It's don't try and make a leap and sort of be, oh, I'm really open to everything that's spiritual. Just be open to possibility. And if you're open to possibility, then I think that you're just keeping your funnel just a little bit open to let these little bits of enchantment come in. And then once you see one, it then has a domino effect, because you'll see one little thing and you'll go, oh. And then you'll see another little thing that's happened in your life and you'll go, oh, wow. And then it kind of spills over into actually being more receptive, and then almost looking for it. So when it comes, you're not saying, oh, you're saying, you kind of like sink into that feeling of, oh, okay, like I see this is great. And you can receive. So I think it's being open is the catalyst to get yourself into a state of receiving.
That's such wonderful advice. Thank you for sharing that. I think, yeah, exactly what you just said. I love how you describe just the tiny shifts, but have you also found that like synchronicity, the more dramatic your action, the more dramatic the synchronicities happen? Have you noticed that in your life? Like bigger decisions yielding bigger moments of magic?
I don't think I've ever measured it like that. Yes, obviously, when you make a big decision like resigning from a job, you have more space to put other things into your life, and that's something that I've been seeing a lot this year too. Right, I've been testing out a lot of different things because I have the time to do it. If I was working a full-time job, it would be difficult. I wouldn't have been able to volunteer at a kids' school or volunteer at a performing arts school or try out your classes that I've been doing. So you have, I think, when you make bigger decisions, you create space to allow more to fit into that space. But let's not forget that it's not the bigger decisions, I think, because if people think that they have to make a big decision, what I think we need to remember is it's about flexing our muscle and getting comfortable with making the tiny decisions, because as you get more comfortable with making tiny decisions where the stakes aren't as high, what you're doing is you're growing the muscle to eventually make bigger decisions. And that, now that I look back, that's totally evident from my life.
Right. Yes, such an important point. I don't think I asked that question well, but you beautifully redeemed it. Let's just close out. Maybe what is the strangest coincidence that has happened to you? Just end it on something fun and a little weird.
Oh my goodness, let me think. Oh God, Aimee, I can't think of one.
Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot.
No, can you tell me one for you?
Yes. I feel like this last year we were living in Mexico, and I feel like it was full of so many strange synchronicities. The last one that happened was we kind of last minute decided like, no, let's move to Spain. And it was something that I felt like we should do, but I was very resistant. I had a lot of amazing friends there. But I was like, yeah, no, I feel like we should, but I had all this resistance and sadness about it. So we bought plane tickets for August 5th. And I had this little planner that I had purchased the year before to write in my to-do list. And I'm looking at this planner, and the very last day in this planner that I purchased there was August 5th, the last day we were going to be there. And that's not the day that it started. Like it had began in I don't know, some totally random day, like June or September, some weird thing. But the very last day in this planner, I have it right here. I kept it because it was so strange. It's August 5th, the very last day that we were to be there. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, yes, we are not supposed to be in Mexico beyond this date of the 5th because my planner says so. So
God,
yeah,
that's amazing. Oh wow. Could it be how I reconnected with my best friend 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the most significant relationships in my life is the relationship I have with my best friend. And we went to school together for 5 months in Istanbul. And then we wrote letters to each other for a couple of years and then lost touch. This is, pre-social media. And I've never really forgotten her. And because her dad worked for the airline and my uncle worked for the airline, every year when I would see him, I would say, oh, have you managed to track, them down? And then 11 years later, one year, he said, oh, yes, I did. I met a friend of her dad's. And so my uncle found out where she had been at university, and I phoned up the university and sweet-talked them into giving me her university email address. I'm not quite sure that this would happen now, but this was 20 years ago. And so my aunt emailed her, because this is pre-Gmail and Hotmail. God, I'm giving away all these references, my age. But but my aunt emailed her and said that, that I was in Toronto for the summer and I would really love to connect, etc. And nothing happened for a couple of months. I went back to London. I started law school. And when I came home one day in October, I had a message on my home phone, and it was from her. And she was ecstatic that I tracked her down, and she left her number, and we spoke that day. And the crazy thing is that she had finished, she'd graduated from that university. And she happened to be going back. She hadn't got my message. She happened to be going back to meet her professor in October. And she got there early. And so she thought, let me go to the library and let me log into my email and just see what's there. And so she got this email 3 months later. And if she hadn't got to university, if she hadn't had to meet her professor, and if she hadn't been there early, and if she hadn't decided, rather than, catching up with people or listening to music or reading or whatever, she hadn't decided to go check her email, she could not have gotten my email. And the last 20 years of our lives would be completely different. And we wouldn't have found each other. And I think back to that that element of synchronicity that brought us back into each other's lives. And it blows my mind, because by being in each other's lives, we have changed the fabric of each other's lives because of our relationship and because of, how we make each other better as human beings. And so, that's probably an example where I'm so grateful for the synchronicity in my life. And that happened, 20 years ago. Wow.
That's amazing. What a great story. I love that.
It is. I think it's so beautiful to look at life as, that there's magic everywhere around. And I think it's just us being open and our hearts being open to see it. Which I know sounds a bit woo-woo, but I think it's just a nicer story to tell ourselves, to tell ourselves that there is possibility and excitement and enchantment. Because then if we tell ourselves it's there, then we open ourselves up to the possibility of finding it.
Exactly. I 100% agree with you on that one. And I think, why not believe in that? Like, it can only, welcome more of this enchantment your way. And I'm not advocating for making up meaning where none exists, but I am advocating for doing whatever you need to do and exploring whatever you need to explore to cultivate that sense of wonder and keep the curiosity flowing in yourself, keep you going. I think that's
I love that word, wonder. It's something, it's a word that I really strongly identify with. I love keeping open the space for wonder and bringing wonder and joy into my life, which is what I've been doing a lot of this year.
Thank you so much for talking with me and sharing your wisdom about these things.
Thank you so much, Aimee. This has been such a joy to share this with you and to be part of the podcast. So thank you so much for inviting me and having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone who joined us to listen today. If anyone has any questions or comments about our conversation, please reach out to us through comments or through our email at intentionists.com. We would love to hear from you. Before we part, we'd like to say thanks for listening, and we hope you'll connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We would love to hear from you and appreciate all feedback, shares, and likes.
To learn more and subscribe to our newsletter, visit Intentionists.com. And no matter where you are or what you're creating, we send you love and invite you to breathe and begin.
See you next week.